Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Doing What Matters podcast. I'm your host, Teresa McCloy.
And I'm your co host, Erica Vinson, and we are thrilled that you're listening in today as we dive into discussions about life, business, and all the things that truly matter.
Here on the Doing What Matters podcast, we embrace a holistic approach to living, a way of life rooted in rest, not rush. It's all about connecting to our real self, our real life, and our real work, and remembering who God uniquely created us to be and redefine success through a different lens.
So, whether you're here to find inspiration, practical advice, or just a moment of connection, we're grateful you're here. Let's dive into today's conversation. We are so grateful to be together with you, and beyond just the gift of Teresa and I, today we are super thrilled because we have an expanded presence of our friend, a fellow coach. She's a speaker, a workshop leader, but Rhonda Peterson is here with us as a guest. And Rhonda helps business owners identify their strengths and step into their starring role. She empowers them to lean into what they're best at and let go of the rest so that they can really shine. So, Rhonda offers fresh ways to build your business, your life, and your community. And we're so grateful to have you here today. Welcome, Rhonda.
Teresa and Erica, it is so great to be with you. Thank you so much for this opportunity to have a conversation.
It is great to have you. And always, I said this often, some of these interviews that we get to do are full circle moments because Rhonda and I go back a ways. I was privileged several years ago to be on a podcast that Rhonda used to host and was
That's
one of
true.
the first interviews that I ever did. And she was just so gracious to welcome me into this world of coaching. Met through a community and we have traveled together, shared rooms together, been to conferences together. And she is now one of our certified coaches here at the Real Life Process and has just been a great friend and encourager. So I am super grateful, Rhonda, to have you back on the podcast.
Yes, it's true. This is my second time.
But I wanted to have you back today specifically as I was beginning to think about like how do we grow businesses in our local community? I have just been challenged in the last couple of years to really not overlook the clients that I might have right in front of me. And I began a program about 3 years ago in my local community for women business owners. And we call that Real Life CEO. And I've been doing that for a few years. And about a year ago, we even started diving in and saying, okay, some of our certified coaches at the Real Life Process are interested in something like this, you being one of them in your
That's
local
true.
community. And you said, yeah, I wouldn't mind to go through this beta program and begin to look at my local community. And the reason why is you are so well connected in your local community. So just talk to us a little bit, if you would, about this idea of being involved in your local community in different ways. And what are some of those spaces that you personally do that right now?
There are so many opportunities to be involved in your local community. You're in the faith space, and I too am in the faith space and very involved in my church community. But there's also the business community beyond that. And there's so many opportunities out there. I've been involved for over 10 years in the Columbus NABO chapter. NABO is the National Association of Women Business Owners. And that is a group of women who own businesses of all kinds of different shapes and sizes, people who've been in business for years and years, people who are starting out. So that's one community I'm involved with. I'm also involved in a local chamber. I am located just outside of Columbus, Ohio. And so I'm involved in one of the suburban chambers in my area. And I've made the decision to get involved in a suburban chamber because for me personally, the Columbus chamber is huge. And that's not the space where I've decided I want to be. There are other people I know that are actually involved in NABO that are also involved in the Columbus chamber. For me personally, I choose to be involved in a suburban chamber as opposed to the massive Columbus chamber. Both are very valuable. It's just that's where I choose to be. Because there have been other groups that I've been involved with. I was involved in the Columbus International Coach Federation chapter for a period of time and have moved away from spending a whole lot of time there. There are other networking groups that I've tried out, but I've found that my tribe, the people I really resonate with, are in the Suburban Chamber and in the NABO group. And the other thing I found is there's not so many hours in a day. And if I'm going to be working in my business and doing what matters, I need to focus my networking in the places that I'm meeting the right people and also in the places where I'm fed by going to those events.
You brought up so many good things that we could dive into. The first one is you're involved. You've committed long term and said, I'm going to be here for the duration. And I think when we think about networking, sometimes in your local community can be, I'm going to pop in, I'm going to meet a few people, I'm going to walk out the door with the right business card or the right thing. Or you and I have even joked about the speed networking events that some people will do and those types of things. You've been in these things ever since I've known you, 6, 7 years. I've heard you talk about these organizations, and that longevity piece is huge for you.
That is absolutely true. My NABO connections go back, gosh, more than 10 years. My NABO commitment is deep, and my connections through NABO are also deep because I have so many connections that are first and second and third degree connections from that standpoint. And so we're comparing notes about the fact that we both know this person that's that connection point for us is really important. The flip
Mhm.
side of that is the suburban chamber that I was just talking about. Some of the same people that are in NABO with me several years ago, 10 years ago, were telling me, you really need to go to this suburban chamber because they have a women in business group and you would love it. So 7 years after they told me that, I finally went and became part of that group. And it's been extremely valuable for me.
You're talking consistently, Rhonda, about tribe and time. And so
Yeah.
there's these two things, these connections, and what's happening in you as you're really settling into this is my tribe and this is how I want to steward my time. What's going on in you?
I am a connector. That is one of the things that I am, is a connector of information, connector of people. And what's going on in me in these organizations is I'm recognizing where I can provide the most value. The tribe and the network that I have in these different organizations allow me to contribute to them and also be able to tap into what these other folks within the organization have that I can glean value from. And that's really important. Some of my really good friends on the local level are people who are from these different groups. And there's a level of trust and connection that if you're just popping in and out, it doesn't happen that way. You need to invest the time in the organization to get back this really rich relational
There's equity.
experience.
Yeah, there's
Yeah,
equity,
in
right?
equity. That's a really good point. It is
There's
equity.
equity in relationships. We've all been involved in watching the online world grow
We
over
have,
the last 10 or 15 years and seeing that there can be depth in relationship in the online space. I personally believe that depth goes deeper when you get in person, which is why even within our coaching community, we have a couple of live events every year where people can come and be in person. But what have you felt or noticed of these organizations that you're in your local community? Because even in your kind of mission is to help people build their business, their life, and their community. The women specifically that you want to work with are women that give back to their community. They're in
yes,
these things.
absolutely.
That's so different than some of the online businesses that we see build. Not that they're wrong, they're just different. What is it that's life giving for you in the local networking that you do?
Before I answer that question, I want to flip it back on the online side because you and I met in an online community.
We did. So it's
I
not
mean,
to say online is wrong.
but we started out online and then we met in real life. And then we were online again, and it's been a back and forth from that standpoint. However, the community in real life has a different feel and ability to it. As an example, I was at a luncheon today, and when you're in the room with the people, and there were probably 75 people in the room today, there is a level of energy because you are there physically together in the same space. Just there's a level of energy when we do our real life process retreats. You can be connected in the online space, but the level of energy is, I find, much higher when you're in a room with a group of people. And whether you use the term networking or connecting or relationship building, serving your community together, that's just a very different feeling than being in squares on a Zoom call.
And they can be life giving. And I'm thrilled that we have the ability to do all these different types of virtual calls. They're wonderful. But I know even as you think about building your real life CEO chapter there in your local area, the reason you were drawn to working through this program and this signature content is because it would put women from your local area in the same room together with one purpose to grow their
Exactly.
business and to also not grow at the expense of their own self-care and soul care and the way that they get to show up with the people that matter most to them.
As you were talking, I thought about one other thing that the being physically present with each other in the room allows for. It's physical connection.
Mhm.
Whether you're just talking to someone face to face or whether it's shaking someone's hand, or quite honestly, in a lot of the rooms that I'm in, it's giving somebody a hug around their neck, that you can't do that through the screen. There are a lot of things you can do, but you cannot hug somebody or shake their hand through the screen.
Yeah, physical proximity matters. You've just faithfully leaned into this space, and I loved we gathered recently for a network call. We have some new cohort members joining, and you were the person in the chat that was like, "Hey, I know someone you need to know. I want to introduce you. Oh, I have a friend that does." And you're making connections naturally, and I don't think that's just a coincidence. I know it's your heart, but it's also because you've been practicing this. What has helped you to continue to show up in these spaces for the long haul?
To be honest with you, I think the first thing that has made me do that for the long haul is I feed off of being in a room with people. I am an extreme extrovert. And both of you know that because you've been in the space. And there are times when it's like, turn it down 3 notches, Rhonda. But being with other people gives me energy. And so even if I don't know everybody who's going to be in the room, but I know the underlying reason for the people that are in that room, I've learned how to put myself in the space because there's always somebody I can connect to, and I will come away with something I didn't expect because I've had a conversation with someone. I never know what that's going to be. This was the craziest experience. So I was in a networking event that I was invited to by somebody who came to our local chamber coffee event. And during the course of this networking event, sponsored by their company, they were talking about that the company had a 90s day where everybody in the company can do in the spirit thing. They dress like the 90s, which just for the record, I'm not sure what that means. At any rate, this guy who's in the room, they're telling the story of how he came for 90s Day was he had a boombox on his shoulder. So I hear the story and they get done with all their part of it. And I made a beeline for this guy because I'm like, I have got to meet this guy who came in with the boombox on his shoulder. Long story short, through that conversation with him, I shared the real life process concept of flipping the triangle. Blew his mind. He said, "Oh my God, you've blown my mind." I am now talking with them about doing a 1-day leadership training for the company because of that conversation with that man.
It's that uniqueness of who in the room caught my attention, who in the room brought something that I hadn't heard it that way before. I hadn't leaned in that way. And I think that is a gift that you have. You may be listening today to this podcast and going, that's me too. Like, I love that local space. I love being in the room. It sounds, if you were just listening to this podcast, that you are busy all the time, going to network stuff, doing these events, doing all these things. So, how do you navigate? We often say the stewarding of time to say, this is what I'm committed to, and this is enough. Because if somebody's saying, I think I need to be in my local community, I need to be connected to something that you have going on, Rhonda, if they're from the Columbus area, or I need to build something like this in my local community. How do you look at it from a time perspective?
Certainly, time blocking comes into this process using the real life process and knowing what time I have available to do networking related things, knowing the spaces where I choose to be connected from a networking perspective. As an example, my local chamber has a lot of different opportunities. I personally have made the decision that I don't do the after hours events because I know I'm not at my best at something that is from 5:30 to 7 at night. That's when I'm like ready to chill, have some dinner, and be done with the day. I'm not saying I'll never do anything in the evening, but that is not going to be the space where I'm going to go and need to be on my game.
There is actually some wisdom, some discernment, some strategic
Yeah.
planning as you're really stewarding this gift of tribe and community as you step in, or else we can just be plugged into all the events. And how do you go to these events? How do you know when you move from, I'm just connecting and this is fun, and now I have to take action? How do you know when you're ready and when you were ready to actually step and go, okay, for this to be fruitful, there needs to be a return on, we talked about the return on investment or return on your
Right.
energy.
Yes, absolutely. That is an ongoing learning process, to be perfectly honest with you. And I don't look at my involvement in organizations in the community as only being about making sure I'm getting clients from it. I've been pretty turned off by some experiences where I went to networking groups that unfortunately were drawing people who were in a multi-level financial planning space, and you just felt like you were the mark in those spaces. And so that's the place where I went screaming from the room. I'm like, yeah, I'm not doing that anymore. Do not need that in my life. And I think that's legitimate for all of us to be able to say, what is the right place for me? Because what's the right place for me might not be the right place for you. That being said, knowing who your potential client is and being able to describe that person. When you introduced me, you talked about the fact that I help people be able to build their business, their life, and their community. I give them fresh ways to do those things. And when I say build their community, what I mean is they want to be involved in the community where they live and make it a better place. When I meet somebody that is in that space, or when I'm able to talk to someone who says, who can I introduce you to? to be able to say, these are the people that I want to work with, that's a critical part of your ability to network, is to know who you're looking for. And when someone asks you that, how are you going to respond to them? Who are you looking for? That's kind of part of your homework as you move into the networking journey. And the last thing I'll say from that standpoint is you are not going to know that answer on day one. Mm.
No, you are not. And it comes through being in the room and not feeling like you're there to get something out of it in the beginning. Like,
Yes.
can you be in the room authentically to learn? And I heard you say that earlier of, I want something that feeds me as well. It's going to be exhausting if you try to build in your local community and go to things. I heard you talking about going to something today that just were blown away by the content. And so sometimes, hopefully, we go to these local things and we forget we're even there to meet somebody. We're just absorbed and taking in. And that's why I think you and I, as I built this CEO program, you were drawn to it because you could see that you could build a cohort of women that would be
Mhm.
together for 6 months or so and really pour into each other's businesses at a very deep level, learning the same content together, going through something that's part of the signature content of a CEO program called the 7 P's of business,
Yep.
leaning in, being able to network and refer, but grow together around the content and around the teaching and the masterminding and the coaching all together. And just forget they were even there to like network. That just came naturally because sometimes networking to me or growing together in these kinds of things is when people make a commitment. That's why we do
True.
this particular CEO program in a 6 month time. We're going to do this thing together is different. It's like you committing. I've been involved in BNI, Business Network International, for almost 6.5 years. It's a weekly commitment. And yet, even today, as I had that meeting this morning, they know me and they know what I do. They know how I show up in my community. And it makes me referable. We often call it the network that's behind you, is
Mhm.
people are able to talk about you and refer as they're out in the world listening. And so, as you're building the CEO program, that's the next thing that you're doing. Tell us
Right.
about even a shift that you recently made. You just made a shift of, I thought I was going to build this here, but now I realized after I was at some of these events and was looking that there's a whole new opportunity for me in a different place around the Columbus, Ohio area.
Yes. I live on the north edge of the Columbus metro area. And so I have been focusing all my energies on looking into the Columbus metro area. And I've spent several years in the coaching space and trying to build a community. I've not had the structure and the framework of the real life process CEO program until in the last 6 to 8 months. And I have been aware of many communities, training programs, groups in the metro area that all are looking to draw business owners and some of them focusing on women business owners. And as I was looking at where do I want to focus my energy to build this business around the coaching focus around the real life process CEO, I realized that if I'm looking down into the city, I'm a small fish in a big pond. But if I turn and actually I'm north edge of Columbus, so if I'm looking south to look to Columbus, if I turn north, there are several county seats that are good sized cities that have a lot of business in them. Marion, Mansfield, Mount Vernon, even Delaware, which is my county seat, where there are women business owners that don't have the number of opportunities for community and training and connection to other business women, the 7 P's of business, but also the real life process, which helps you to be balanced as a business owner. I'm making a shift from spending my attention toward Columbus. I'm looking north to the chambers and the economic development organizations in these smaller cities for where I'm going to find the people that I'm going to have for my group. That doesn't mean I won't have my network that's also down in the city, but where I'm looking for the people in my group has changed.
This ties to so many things as business owners. Sometimes we're looking for our business, whether it's brick and mortar or whether it's online or virtual groups or whatever it might be. And if we would just turn our head, even that, as you said, if I just turn my head this way, I go, oh my gosh, there's a whole group of people over here that really need what I have to offer. I just have to go network there. I have to go be a part of that local community, build some connections there, or get referrals from the connections I already have in this other location, right? That excited me so much when you actually shared that of, and I don't care what you're trying to build, of like, just what am I not seeing that's right in front of me? I know for you, it just was an aha moment of, oh, wait, now this may take a few months to get reconnected and do what you want to do. But the willingness to say, no, I'm willing to go look at this and explore this opportunity in a different way.
And it's a risk, right? To turn and to shift and
It is.
all good opportunities. It's easier to see when we're looking back, but it's courageous to step into that. And as I'm just listening, Rhonda, it's really about conversations. And so, as much as they
It's
might need what you have, you also are desiring to learn, just knowing oneself. And we're all on that journey. And the more we know ourselves and the more we're discerning and walking in that wisdom, you're just showing up in some really beautiful ways as you're leaning in with people and creating those connections and also just being open to new opportunities. So I'm just grateful to hear about where you are in your story.
Thanks, Erica. I appreciate that.
If you're listening in and you're like, I really like to be with people, I want to say, don't be ashamed of that. Even in this world that's, oh, I work from home, I have all of this. There's a lot of healthiness too. There's a worldwide epidemic of loneliness right now. The mental health field will talk about it all the time. And if you're like, what am I needing right now? What do I need as a business owner? What do I need for my own self care and soul care? Where do I need to be in a room? I work from a co working space. I could work at home very easily with my business, but I show up in a co-working space because of the community, because of the relationships and the depth of and the friendship circles that grow out of that, the water cooler conversations. And I'm not saying one is right or one is wrong, but what I love about Rhonda is she knows herself well enough to know that she feeds off that energy, that she knows how to steward her time so that networking isn't all that she does. She has grandkids, she has a hubby, she is involved in her church community. You can do this local community stuff with purpose, with a plan. If you're listening in and you're from the Columbus area, specifically the counties that she just talked about, connect with Rhonda. We'll have her information inside of the show notes. But Rhonda, how else would it be best for them to connect with you if they're like, what is real life CEO? I'd like to know more about it. I'm not that far, or I'm willing to drive. How would they best connect with you?
The best way for them to connect with me is please connect with me on LinkedIn. Don't follow me, connect with me on LinkedIn. You can find me at Rhonda Peterson Coach on LinkedIn. I would love to connect with you there, and we will start the conversation on LinkedIn and then take it from there.
I imagine she'll invite you if you want to meet in person. Rhonda, thank you so much for being with us. And I am so glad that we've been on the journey together. So thank you, my friend.
Thank you. Been great being with both of you.
Just as Rhonda encouraged, it begins often by just paying attention to what is it that I need and where am I my best self and how do I want to show up in the world? And so don't miss, as Rhonda described, that just turning of the head. Just take some time to look all around and notice what is right here in my proximity that might be a place I can make a connection and begin a conversation.
Many conversations that I have throughout a day are ones that become extraordinary moments for me. I never know. I almost start every day just by even praying through my day and saying, here's who was on my calendar today. Here's what group I'm going to show up in. Here's where I'm going to be either locally or virtually. In the moment when I stare at them on my calendar, it seem like just some ordinary meeting and it becomes an extraordinary moment. So we invite you, as we do every week here on the podcast, that every ordinary day has an extraordinary moment. You just have to look for them. We'll be back next week with another conversation, either a guest or an episode that Erica and I are diving into around doing what matters. We'll see you next week, friends.